Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to the Dow Academy Online Learning. We look forward to seeing you all back in class. But for now, stay home, stay safe, and remember to always wash your hands with soap for at least 20 seconds. Let's begin.
Hello, Form 4s. This is for the agriculture students. I want us to look at one topic, which is one of the important topics in agriculture. This is about irrigation. Before we can look at the details of the topic, you know very well that when crops are grown, they need water. And the water that they obtain from the soil can either be applied naturally in form of rain, or it can be applied artificially by means of irrigation. And this water which is applied is very, very essential because it benefits the soil, the crops, for them to grow and they perform very well, produce the right product. They need that water. So we can either supply the water ourselves as farmers artificially, or we can depend on the rain to apply that water to the soil. Now, we can therefore look at what irrigation means. In agriculture, when you talk about irrigation, we are referring to the process of applying water to the soil artificially, meaning irrigation simply means the artificial application of water to the soil. We don't depend on the rain, but we have to get the water and apply it to the soil where we have grown our crops. Now, there are different methods of applying the water to the soil, which farmers can use. A simple example is in your garden. Remember when we were growing your rape, we had to keep on watering our plants. So a simple example of irrigation is watering the plants or your plots using a watering can. That is an irrigation as well, although it is an irrigation on a small scale. But on big farms or commercial farmers use other methods to apply that water to the soil. For example, they can use drip irrigation, they can use overhead irrigation, such as sprinkler irrigation, center pivot, and so forth. Sometimes, depending on the type of crop and the type of soil and the area itself, some farmer, not the area but the availability of water, some farmers may even use another method we call flooding irrigation, or what we call the ditch irrigation or furrow irrigation. So all those are different methods, but we are not going to dwell on the methods of application for now. I just want to give an introduction to this topic on irrigation. Now, irrigation actually has got many benefits, or we can actually look at the effects of irrigation on crop yield and the quality. Yield here we are referring to the product. How much product have you obtained from the field? And the quality we are talking about how good that product is. Therefore, irrigation has got an effect on the quality as well as the yield of your crop. And these effects can be divided into two parts. We have good effects, which we can as well call the good, not good effects, yes, we can also call it the benefits of irrigation. The other effect can be bad effect, or the side effect, the bad effects of irrigation, the negative effects. Those are the negative effects. Though we can appreciate that irrigation or supplying water to the soil for our crops is good, but it also comes with some effect. Therefore, farmers need to actually take precautions and make sure that this water or irrigation is carried out carefully so that we don't experience some negative effects. Now let's look at the good effects of irrigation. I'm going to explain some few most important points about good effects of irrigation. The first point we can talk about is that irrigation supplies water to crops at critical growth stages. What are these critical growth stages? We are talking about stages such as flowering and seed formation. So at flowering and seed formation, there must be enough water for the plants to perform and give you the quality and the good yield. Flowering, if you look at a plant, the flowers of the plant, a flower has got a male and a female parts, which carry the male and the female gametes, or the male and the female sex cells. For example, we have the male part, which are the anthers, which produce the pollen. The female part, which has got the stigma, the ovary, that's the male. That's a part which produces the female sex cell, the ovules, which are found inside the ovary. Now, the ovules, the ovary, as well as the pollen grains, they require water for them to develop and grow and mature fully, so that when the pollen grain and the ovules are going to fuse together, they are fully mature to produce a zygote, which will eventually now produce or result into a seed, and now the seed will keep on growing. As the seed is growing, the ovary is also growing to form a fruit. So all those processes require enough water. That's why adequate water at that stage is important. Grain formation, a grain or seed formation for the crops, those seeds as well need water for them to develop fully. So we need enough water or adequate water at those two critical stages. We call them critical because they are very, very important. Once you miss out at that stage or those stages, you miss out on flowering stage, you miss out on seed formation in your production. Hey, as a farmer, you are likely to have, or maybe just a little, and that is a loss to you. Therefore, we need to supply enough water at those two critical stages for us to have good yield and good quality seeds. I'll give an example of maize. Maybe you've eaten maize, especially fresh maize. You find that sometimes on the cob, there are some spaces where there are no grains, or the grains are not fully. It means that probably at the stage of seed formation or grain filling, there was not enough water in the soil. Therefore, the seed did not develop fully. That is one point that you should understand. Then we also have another good effect of irrigation, that irrigation ensures that crops receive uninterrupted supply of water even during drought spell. There are times when we are growing crops during the rain season, but you find 2-3 days or sometimes a week or 2 weeks, it's a dry spell, there's no water, no rain, the crops are dying. So during that time, those who have got irrigation equipment, you can now switch on your irrigation equipment to continue watering, continue supplying water to your crops, and then your crops are going to grow and survive, produce the quality and the good yield that you're expecting. Irrigation also has got a good benefit in that it helps us to produce quality and good yield of exotic crops which need adequate or large quantity of water. We have exotic crops, most of the horticultural crops, vegetables, even fruits, which we normally buy from Spars, Choppies, all these shops. Those vegetables like cabbage, carrots, beetroot, spinach, cauliflower, name them. All those vegetables are exotic, meaning they are imported into our country. They are not originally produced here in Botswana, for example. So where they come from, actually, they have been bred in such a way that they have to be supplied with water every time. You realize that when you're growing vegetables, they don't rely on the rain. You can grow them during the rain season quite all right. They will be supplied with water by the rain. That is a natural supply of water. But there are times when you need to continue watering. Even after 2 days of no rain, you need to supply water. They can't survive without water, even for 2-3 days. Some of the vegetables cannot survive. So you have to apply water on a daily basis, and that's why irrigation now comes in. That's the importance of irrigation in that circumstance. You supply water to those crops which require adequate or large quantities of water for you to produce good quality products and a good yield. We also have another advantages of irrigation. Irrigation actually helps farmers to produce crops in those areas where there's limitation of rainfall, or in short, rainfall is a limiting factor. You can still produce crops because you can use irrigation. Put up a borehole on your farm, then when there's no rain or not enough rain, you can still irrigate. That's why I find farmers continue producing even in areas where there's no rainfall. There's a limitation of rainfall. I'll give a particular example. Some years back, Eritrea actually established some farms in the desert and started irrigating crops, you know. So they produce by irrigation, produce crops by irrigation. Then we also have another advantage that when you are irrigating crops, there are certain crops which actually take a long period for them to produce the product. I'll give you an example. Cotton plant. I don't know whether you're familiar with the cotton plant. That's why you produce the white lint that is normally used for, in the hospitals. That white lint which you can even buy from the shop. It comes from the plant, and that's the cotton plant. So cotton plant actually has got a long growing season. It takes about 130 to 160 days. There are some variety can go up to even 180 days. 180 days, which you talk about 6 months. If it's 150 days, you are talking about 5 months there. So that period is quite long. And looking at our rain season here in Botswana, particularly, farmers normally grow with the first serious rain, which comes end of November or early December, sometimes even January. Now, assuming you are growing cotton and you are planting your crops in December, and that variety is going to take 4.5 or 5 months for it to mature and produce the product. Count now. From December, you are talking of December, January, February, March, April, May, for you to reach the last production period for that crop. 6, May is the onset of what? Cold season, and it may not actually do very well. So what you need now to do is, as a farmer, if you have got an irrigation equipment, you need to start your crop early. Plant early in the season. Maybe you can plant end of October, November there. You keep on irrigating while you're still waiting for the serious rains to come in. Then you are prolonging the growing period of your crop, such that by the time the cold season comes in, you will have actually produced your crop. That's an advantage of what? Irrigation, because you can extend the growing period of your crop. So those are some of the advantages or good effects of irrigation. Now let's look at the bad effects or the negative effects of irrigation. One major negative effect of irrigation is that Some irrigation methods actually promote the spread of disease. An example is sprinkler irrigation. So we can say sprinkler irrigation actually spread fungal infection in the sense that the leaves are always wet. They are kept wet. You know, sprinkler irrigation applies water in form of rain. It comes from above, and before it lands on the soil, on the ground, it actually lands on the plants, the leaves of the plants. And as you continue watering, you find that the leaves are always wet. And when it's hot, when the temperatures are quite high, that's the condition which is favorable for the fungi to grow. The conditions are that there should be moisture or wet condition and warmth. So when those two conditions are there, the fungi are going to grow on the leaves, and it will promote fungal infection or fungal diseases on the leaves and even on the stem, particularly on seedlings, the young plant that are still emerging, that are still growing from the nursery or from the seedbed. They will be affected. Why? Because one, the soil is wet, the soil is moist. Most of the time there's water. The stems are going to have the moisture around it. There's a high humidity around the stems. And the leaves are also going to receive water from the sprinkler, which means fungi can easily grow. That's one point that you should actually take note of. Another bad effect of irrigation is that it results in soil erosion. Soil erosion, the washing away of topsoil from one point to another, from one place to another by water or wind. Now, when irrigation is applied, when water is applied, depending on the method that we are using, erosion can take place, washing away the soil, especially those who are using flood irrigation or furrow irrigation. You are channeling the water in a furrow to go to your plot. As it is flowing in the channel, you are doing what? You are also washing away. That water is taking away the soil with it, causing some erosion to take place in your field. And that can also result into silting up of seedlings. Silting up simply means the seedlings are going to be covered with the soil which is being washed. Say, for example, there are some young plants at a field, on a field, at the end of the irrigation channel where the water is flowing. So all the soil that is being washed is going to be heaped on top of your young plants. That is silting up of the seedlings. They are covered with the soil. That's another disadvantage. Then we also have another issue concerning irrigation. When you are applying water to the soil, sometimes there's accumulation of salts in the topsoil. This accumulation of salt happens when chemical fertilizers are applied to the soil. When chemical fertilizers are applied to the soil, the chemicals, the salts which are found in that chemical, may accumulate bit by bit. Because you're applying a lot of water, it also actually going to accumulate. As the water is going to evaporate, it will leave the salts to crystallize, to form some crystals, and those crystals are going to accumulate in your field, and that will now pose a bad side effect, because too much salts again may cause damage to your plant roots or may not be good for your plant roots. Some of the salts may even actually result into an effect where the plant roots are unable to absorb other nutrients. So basically those are the effects, bad effects, good effects of irrigation. Please, if you have got any further question on this topic, do ask. WhatsApp, email, or you can actually call directly. Then I will help you. Thank you very much. Have a good day, stay safe, and keep yourself at home all the time. Bye for now.